Well, to those of us in the aviation game who work day in, day out, we meet some indelible characters from throughout the industry. And for the better part of, it's got to be over 30 years now, I have known Jim and the Scott family, your dad, your mom, your sisters, everybody, and then some who, of course, run the Arlington Fly-In and run aviation businesses out in the Arlington area. If you would, tell me a little bit right now about your current business interest, specifically AirCore.
I started AirCore Aviation about 8 years ago when I got back into the lighter side of aviation. Specialized in light sport aircraft, primarily in Rotax engines. We've had significant growth in our business over 13 quarters. We just moved to a new, larger facility. There's 3 of us in the shop now full time, and we've got about 70 SLSA aircraft in our customer database and at least as many experimentals and home-built aircraft. I've been in aviation my entire life. I've been an A&P for about 35 years. I'm an IA, just started working on the paperwork to become a DAR. So, I've spent my entire life in aviation, and I've come full circle back to what I love to do most.
Well, Jim, the reason I'm putting you out in front of camera, you and I sat down for lunch with our crew today, and we were talking about some of the things that people in the real world, the folks that are interested or have bought their LSA, are having to contend with in the real world. Now that they've got it, what do they do with it? How do they survive it? How do they maintain it? How do they keep the airplane both safe and a decent investment for the future? And you had a lot to say. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you the soapbox. Have at it.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is read the manuals. I get calls almost weekly from people asking questions about their airplane that they should know, and do the research. Most people that sell airplanes are trying to do just that, to sell airplanes. I'm not going to say that some of them misrepresent their product, but sometimes they don't give the customer the kind of information that they need to have. So I encourage people to, first of all, identify your mission. What are you going to use the airplane for? Identify your budget, and then go find an airplane that fits within both of those parameters. If you talk to a manufacturer, ask them for a list of customers that you can contact and get their opinion of the airplane, because that's where the rubber meets the road. If you own an airplane and I come up to you and I say, would you buy another one? How's the factory service? How easy is it to get parts? How easy is it to maintain the airplane? That's where it's at. And I also encourage people to shop around and look for a mechanic that knows what he's doing. I've been interviewed many times by prospective customers that wanted to get to know me, find out what kind of background I had. Let's face it, $100,000 or $120,000 to most of us is a significant investment. Take a little bit of extra time and do it right. Regardless of what the salesman says, he probably doesn't have 4 other people on the hook for that particular airplane.
Pipistrel's innovative new Alpha trainer has been designed from the ground up for flying school operations. Powered by a Rotax 80 horsepower engine, the Alpha burns only 2.5 U.S. gallons of fuel per hour at 100 to 108 knots, giving you the opportunity to make flight training cost-effective once again. Be sure to check out the Pipistrel Alpha when you're ready to select your next trainer. Get more info at pipistrel-usa.com.
Now, you have a particular speciality in working on the Rotax, and you were telling me at lunch that there's a number of things that you're seeing on a regular basis. I mean, let's face it, it's a great engine, but it's only as great as its maintenance and operation.
That's correct. One of the first things that I see is people start to believe what they read on the internet. There's blogs and chat groups out there, and there's a lot of misinformation being put out about the engine, how to maintain it. I've even gone to EAA chapter meetings and heard somebody spouting off, and I ask them where they got their information, and they say, well, everybody knows that. Well, my standard answer is I don't. Show me the manual it came out of. So verify the information that you get. Back it up with some sort of data. The old, that's the way we used to do it in 1962, just doesn't fly anymore. We've got sophisticated airplanes, sophisticated engines. They have to be maintained properly to run for a long time, and you got to take care of them right. And if you don't know the answers to those questions, go find them from somebody you can trust.
What are the common mistakes? Is there any theme or uniformity to the issues that are being raised when somebody brings an engine to you and says, well, it's just not working right?
Mostly what I see an owner that tried to do something that he wasn't qualified to do. He didn't think it all the way through, didn't understand how it works. For instance, carburetor synchronization on a Rotax. If you understand how it works, you can do it in about 15 or 20 minutes and do it right. I've had a lot of airplanes come in where the owner tried to do it themselves with substandard equipment they bought on the internet because it was cheap, and they couldn't get it dialed in right. There's also some speculation out there about oil changes. There are people that believe that you can go 100 hours between oil changes. Drain the oil out and look at it. You'll change your mind. So, there's just a few things out there that are really messing people up, and all they have to do is backtrack a little bit, read the manual, pay attention, call somebody like me or one of the other reputable repair centers and get some good information.
Are you ready for the next generation of light sport airplanes? Check out the all-new Pipistrel. Fun, fast, and easy to fly. Learn more at www.pipistrel.com. No other aircraft explores the limits of the light sport category more than the Carbon Cub SS. It can land and take off in patches that you thought were accessible only to helicopters and hikers, and it does so with the grace, confidence, and control that are Cub hallmarks. If you thought that light sport was just for budget-minded beginners or for veteran pilots stymied by FAA medicals, you simply must fly a Carbon Cub SS. Check us out at www.cubcrafters.com.
Are the manufacturers arming their customers with the right kind of information as they send them out to go forth and fly?
I would have to say in most cases, absolutely not.
Okay.
They get the money, they sell the airplane. In most cases, the airplane's delivered a long way from where the importer is, because most of the airplanes are made out of country. And in a lot of cases, the customer's left on their own. For many of the manufacturers, they're not selling enough airplanes to have a good, solid dealer network around the country. Mm-hmm. Some of them do. So there's a lot of customers that are just out there floating without any sort of factory support. And this is where we come in at AirCore, because when we see an airplane in our area that we haven't seen before, I usually immediately make contact with the importer or the manufacturer, tell them who we are, who our customer is, and that we would like to service this airplane properly. In some cases, you have to get a hold of the manufacturer to even get the maintenance manuals for the airplane. And so, they'll give me access to a database or a password or something to get access to the manuals and the information I need to maintain the airplane properly.
Now, for folks who are intending to purchase an aircraft far enough away from Arlington, Washington, that they can't necessarily call you for your expertise, how do you then qualify the support system that you need to operate your aircraft effectively?
That's a good question, Jim, and it's also a tough question. I would first go to the distributor and see if they have somebody in the area that's qualified. Beyond that, I would start visiting the shops, talk to the mechanic face to face. Find out if they've worked on similar airplanes, find out if they're Rotax engine qualified, get a feel for what they'll do for you. And, we all have that gut instinct. If you take your car into an auto shop and the place is filthy and the mechanics are filthy and the place is in disarray, you don't have a very good feeling about leaving your car there. It's the same thing with an airplane. You don't have to pick the first mechanic that comes along, and you don't necessarily need the guy that's got 50 years experience. Sometimes the guys with 5 or 10 years experience know more about your airplane than the older guys. And, really talk to the A&Ps. There's a lot of A&Ps out there that have not been through the Rotax training and won't go through it because they figure an engine's an engine. And in the case of Rotax, that's not the case.
Oh, this is new technology.
And I see mistakes being made out there by these guys all the time.